All
Yeah.
right, this is good. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Press Play, where we talk with high performers about how they press play. Like, what do they do to have fun? So here today, I have the honor of meeting with Joe Citro, who is out of St. Petersburg, Florida. He has been with the Ronald McDonald House of Tampa Bay for 7 years, which I can't wait to ask you a few more questions about that later. But first, the fun part. So, Joe, I have had a sneak peek at what makes you you. And I just have to say, like, really cool travel experience. So I would love to find out, like, how many countries have you visited now?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. So excited to be here. But yeah, so now I'm at 28 countries, 45 states, 6 continents. So we're
Wow.
missing Antarctica, but we've been, a lot of other places.
Is there one that stands out to you as like your favorite?
Yeah, I know it's a common question. So I was actually kind of ask a question back as like, what do you define as a favorite? Because then that helps me envision like what you would think of.
See, so that's a good point. I think for
Yeah.
me, it's like when it just speaks to your soul, like you feel
Yeah.
like you belong there.
Okay.
So, like, I've gone to certain places that I'm like,
Yeah.
that it's beautiful or it's cool, but I don't belong here.
Sure,
Other
sure, sure.
places I'm like, I, in a past life or something, was from
Yeah,
there.
yeah, 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 for sure. No, I mean, I would say too that I always I think in my mind, okay, domestic or international. So I mean, I would say to that point, like based on what you're saying is favorite, and that kind of somewhere how I define that. Love Chicago in the US. Chicago's one of my favorite cities. I've been there like at least 12 times. I feel like just different work things, honestly. But that one has been just a favorite city of mine. It's really just a cool place to be. And then abroad, man, there's just like so many different options to consider in that way. But I would say it kind of feels right. The first thing that comes to my mind is maybe because also I'm half Peruvian, but just being in Peru, like, and I have some family down there still. I got engaged in Peru. So, I think Peru is part of that. I think also too, just man, New Zealand really spoke to me when I was there for my honeymoon. That was just an amazing place. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just a mix of everything for me though. And it has to have a little bit of city, a little bit of like experience and nature in some way or beach, whatever it is. And so like those are two places that come to mind that are just amazing.
Wow. Well, they sound amazing. I want to know first about Chicago. Like, what
Sure.
do you do there? Tell me all about it so that I know where to go.
Okay, have you been? You've been, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, gosh, I mean, where to even start? I think that what I enjoy about Chicago is just the food, the culture. I mean, if you're able to catch a game, whether it's go to Wrigley Field and watch a game or go to the Blackhawks, watch a game or see the Bulls, it's just like the sports environment is really such a big part of that culture. And then same thing too with the neighborhoods. And I guess I'm biased, right? I think St. Pete has some of that as well with the neighborhoods. Like everyone kind of takes a lot of pride in where they're from. And so in Chicago, like Wrigleyville is just such a cool, hip, like fun part of Chicago. Going to the Cubby Bear, like after a game at Wrigley Field is just awesome. Going to the Loop, like in downtown, like there's just all different types of restaurants there and bars, like a full fun scene. So it's just, I don't know, like I said, just the vibe to me because I think one, I love pizza. So the deep dish pizza, the Italian beef sandwiches, like all that food that's maybe not the healthiest for you is like right up my lane. And there's just always something to do in Chicago. So whether it's hanging up, on the right there on the lake, or like I said, catching a game or going out for a nice dinner. It's just kind of has a little bit of everything. And it's a hustle bustle type of city too. I think it's just a really cool place that also has some amazing suburbs too outside of it. While it's like, I guess it kind of reminds me of where I grew up in Palm Harbor, right? While it's kind of like out there in the suburbs, you still can kind of make your way into town type of thing, where it's about 45 minutes or so, an hour or so away. So again, just a really cool place, totally different vibe, that's for sure.
Wow. Okay, I'm glad you brought up food because I am such a foodie. And when you
Sure,
said
yeah.
like pizza, and I'm like, yeah, that's the best. Like I need pizza.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
That is awesome.
Absolutely.
And so the pizza you think is the Chicago deep dish is like the best.
Okay, here we go. I would say I think it depends on personal preference. I do like Chicago deep dish for sure. I think I would say I skew still more toward New York style, but I think it's just the different types of food in Chicago that you can have, the type of experience you can have, just, again, walking down the river. I mean, all that type of stuff is really cool. So I would say they're close. I'm gonna say New York style beats it out, but I'd rank it those two. If we're gonna talk pizza, then you got like Neapolitan and Roma and all these other styles, and we're just gonna put those to the side. So I'm just New York or Chicago is kind of my
Love it. This like
yeah.
Sounds perfect. Now in
Yeah.
Peru, tell me a little bit about that. Like, what is some of the food like there? And you said that you're part Peruvian, right?
Yeah, my mom grew up in Peru and was raised there her whole life, and then she came to the US to study. So actually I was born in New Jersey, and so she went to study in New Jersey, met my dad, and here we are. So yeah, I mean, her growing up was a big part of us just kind of being aware of that. And so the food there, if you haven't Peruvian food in Tampa Bay, you can find, but like pollo a la brasa, which is this amazing chicken. I know it's rotisserie chicken. People are like, oh, but it's absolutely phenomenal. If you had, of course, ceviche was really, I believe, originated from Peru. So, that is just a phenomenal dish. Then there's actually a lot of Chinese fusion that came into Peru. And so it's kind of like a lot of the chickens, different things. The desserts, there's what's called, which are sweet. It's a sweet potato donut. And so it's just really different in that sense. Like who would want to eat a potato donut, but you put that with honey? Amazing.
Oh my
So I mean, there's a
gosh.
lot of different dishes in Peru. That's for sure. It's just like an amazing culinary experience. So yeah, we definitely loved our time there. I've been a few times now.
And you got engaged there. How special is that? That sounds amazing. And then honeymooned in New Zealand. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we got engaged in Machu Picchu. So I was like, man, maybe that's too much. And everyone's like, go for it, do it. So I'm like, all right, I guess so. Worked out. Thankfully, she was surprised. She didn't think it was going to happen. We worked it all out. So yeah, I hired for a few days just to capture us. And she was like so unsure that first day. And then by the third day, we find in Machu Picchu and she kind of, it happened. I got on a knee. We found a little place with the guy to do it at, and it was pretty awesome. So
Wow.
yeah.
That is just
Yeah.
amazing. Now, how long have you been married?
So 2.5 years, yeah.
So you guys are
So it's been awesome.
newlyweds.
We're newlyweds. We're new
Oh.
into it, but it's great. It's great. It's good stuff.
Now, out of all the places and continents that you visited, is there a place like that just you didn't love? Don't go back there.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I mean, my wife and I, we just did a trip around Europe for a bit. Actually, just got back about a month ago. And I think the one city that, I think I'm glad that we did, I don't know if I'd go back though, is probably Vienna. I think it's cool. Like also too, we were there when we're not huge opera people, but there was no like performances. And I'm glad actually we were debating, should we spend an extra day in Vienna or next? This is awesome.
Wow. Well, that's
Yeah.
incredible. So when you kind of settle down, from a long day of work, do you plan to have like travel plans or, what does like maybe a regular day look like for you?
I would say my wife and I, we are pretty proactive and very intentional. Like we got to make this trip happen. And that really is just like a window of the year. We'll really start thinking about that for about maybe 4 to 5 months out of the year to say, okay, let's really start figuring out what we're going to do, where we're going to go. And we plan it all ourselves. My wife is like more type A than I am. We have like a 30-page document. It's ridiculous, but it's great. But outside of that, put that to the side. One of the things that I do love to do is I've gotten to more recently is the cold plunge, like sauna. You just
Yes.
kind of, check out for the day. So I really enjoy that. It's just kind of a fun way to kind of have that wellness and just kind of not think about all the million things to do and just kind of be present in the moment. So love that. And then also love to cook. I'm an avid cook. It's kind of fun to create something from nothing. So whether that's like I also have a smoker, so that's me like smoking meats out there. Those are two things that kind of on a daily basis also help me to kind of center myself.
Wow. So my husband is also like enjoying this cold plunge thing. He
Yeah.
purchased a pod that has the sauna, so it's like a personal pod, and then the cold,
Okay.
and he'll go back and forth, and he swears by it, but I have yet to try it.
You got to try it. I mean, the first time we did it, I was like, all right, let's see how we feel the next day. And it's tough to describe in a very positive way. I mean, if you have like a really intense workout and then you go sauna cold plunge, like you will not feel sore the next day. It's pretty wild.
Wow.
Like you just feel totally fine. So it's really fascinating, but I just think we go to the Balance House, shout out Balance House in St. Pete. It's a great spot. It's very like relaxed, spa-like. And so we just really enjoy kind of that getaway. It's nice for my wife and I to have that kind of time together in a different way too.
So I also hear like about mental health with it. Like it helps with anxiety or, like some of those
Sure.
emotions because I guess you build up, probably like some kind of self-tolerance. I'm not a scientist on this, but that's what I was reading about the
Yeah.
cold plunge in particular. Do you feel that way too, that it
Yeah, I
also,
think so.
yeah.
I think there's just a lot. Yeah, if it's in general, I think it just is, everything that we've read is just a good balance, a good thing to do. It's great again as it relates to Alzheimer's, things like that. So I think it's fun. We enjoy it. It's kind of a cool little community that's being built, and they're popping up everywhere too. I think it's like a new fad that everyone's doing, but I do think it's here to stay because I do think people are trying to focus more on their well-being in general as a collective. And so finding opportunities like this makes sense.
A friend of mine here, he did like ice plunge with Wim Hof. The whole thing was with the master of this, and he had such great things to say. So I need to be less of a chicken. I need to try it.
Just go for it. Just give it a go.
Oh, I put like part of my leg in and I was like, what is this?
Yeah, you just gotta, what we've learned and what I've told people how to commit, like you just can't think about it. To your point about like the mental piece of it, it's just like you just gotta just get in the water, even if it's you're in there, time you go in, you just gotta fully just embrace like because if you pause for a second, you're not gonna do fully get in. You don't have to submerge your whole body, obviously, but even just putting your legs in or something,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you also do the sauna piece with it or are you strict cold
yeah.
plunge? Yes. Okay. So they
No,
complement each
sauna
other.
piece too. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, people do that. People just do just the cold plunge, and I just, for my sanity, and maybe it's the Floridian in me, like need the heat.
Yeah. It's got to
Extremely
feel
cold
good.
water.
Definitely. Okay. And then cooking. So I'm pretty horrible at cooking. So I'm
Sure.
unfortunate for my husband. Tell me your signature dish. Do you have a signature dish?
Yeah, so I would say as it relates to when I like smoke meats, I'm a huge fan. My mom was a huge fan of the ribs I made, which I put on the smoker for like 5 or 6 hours. So the smoker is like a labor of love, simple, but it is just you're still just like checking on it, running back and forth, doing this and that. So that or cedar plank salmon, I'm pretty decent at that, and also can make a pretty mean pasta with shrimp. So a lot of different dishes, but yeah, I do enjoy it. My wife, I think, is thrilled because she's like sweet. But yeah, I really just enjoy the kind of creativity piece of getting to a kitchen and trying to make different stuff.
I always feel like it tastes better when I mean, even though I'm horrible at cooking, when I do cook, I'm always like, this is so good. Why do I not do this? But I think it tastes better, it's healthier all around.
Yeah.
Do you also find like it just brings you joy to do it? It sounds like.
It does, and I will. It's just my wife and I, thankfully. So I just kind of like cook like in bulk. So I'm like, all right, we got this. I'm gonna make 2 or 3 kind of things that's gonna last us. But it does bring me a lot of joy. I think it's one of those things that's just, like I said, kind of fun to do. And part of that too is just kind of growing up in my family. That was just a big thing. Was all different meals are being made. Because I'm proving on my mom's side, on my dad's side, Italian. So kind of my grandmother, she was always whipping up stuff, right? Left and right. So it's a big part of my family growing up. And so I think that's also why I just enjoy the kitchen. It's just kind of reminds me of those memories.
So it sounds like you have a big family.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm one of three kind of, but I grew up, my cousins and my uncles and aunts, like everyone lived, actually still does, like in Palm Harbor. So, it's like the whole on both sides. So it's just, all these people all together all the time. So all the birthday parties and everything like that. We were always at someone's house. There was my parents' house, my uncle's houses, or whatever it was. A part of kind of my journey and growing up, and just so grateful to be surrounded by that community, really, kind of since day one, right? So, and that's what brought me back here. I mean, my travels were great, especially domestically. It was primarily for work, so I got to go everywhere and all that type of stuff. But I knew eventually I'd boomerang back to St. Pete because my whole family's here. So it's been great being back.
Where did you move to?
So I was based in Indianapolis, in the country. So I was kind of barely there. And then I had got, so I was working for my fraternity for Lambda Chi Alpha, which is an amazing organization. And then I got, the CEO was like, hey, I want to talk to you. And then like, all right, this is good or bad. He's like, I want to have you help me out and do this stuff. And then that became kind of working for a part of the week and then fly like 3 or 4 weekends out of a month. And after that, it became living in Maryland, working in Michigan, DC a bunch. So I was kind of always on the go, always moving, always traveling. And so I kind of said to myself, I should actually like live and work in the same city for once in my life and like really do that. Again, kind of coming back home was what made the most sense.
Wow. Well, that'll bring me to, I guess, your work part where, I know we talked a lot about how you have fun, but I know you've been at the Ronald McDonald House of Tampa Bay for 7 years. I've had a friend that has utilized this amazing nonprofit, and it was just profoundly positive for them and what they needed. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what you do there?
Yeah, for sure. So really our mission by the accommodations of meals and support for families that have children that are receiving life-saving medical treatment, right? We in simpler to say, we provide access to care, an opportunity to be able to have you be by your child's side while they're navigating through the challenges that your child's facing. We believe that parents or guardians, whoever that is deemed, should be a critical part in their child's care. And so we have five Ronald McDonald houses here in Tampa Bay. We have three in St. Petersburg that primarily serve Johns Hopkins. We've got two in Tampa, one that's right next to Tampa General, and then one that's actually we just built and just opened, gosh, like 2.5 months ago. We're able to actually house 91 families a night that come through our doors, whether that's, mom and dad, grandparents, siblings, whoever it is. Our goal is really just to be able to house them and to feed them and to just provide them with various support services so that way we could focus on what matters most, their child that's in the hospital that's going through something. And so my role there is Chief Development and Marketing Officer. So I oversee all the kind of external pieces, mainly the funding piece, as well as just how we're in the community. So, we're just really glad to have the community support to help us do this work. Like I said, we just opened our fifth house, which was really amazing for us. We hadn't opened a house in about 30 years in the area. So it's really exciting to be able to kind of engage the community in that way. And it's one of those things, to your point, you don't really think about it the Ronald McDonald's until you Ronald McDonald House, until your child's navigating through a really challenging medical process, and you realize, like, man, like I don't want to commute. I have to go to a different state or a different country. Like, how the heck am I going to do that? Where am I going to go? And that's where we come in.
Tell me how does the Ronald McDonald House, like how do you get support? Where does it come from primarily? Is it from families? Is it businesses? How could people help you?
Yeah, for sure. So what I would say is that it's primarily of all various ways that comes in. I mean, primarily, to your point, former families that either they themselves or their families want to support and get involved with us. And we have also some significant partners that just really recognize the impact that we make. And so different kind of family foundations that really believe in the work we do. And then maybe I'll just kind of also talk about McDonald's for a hot second. So of course the name is Ronald McDonald House, and people are like, oh man, McDonald's is funds you, but really that is through the funding that we get is really through different in the stores, round up things like that. And that's part of our budget, but a significant majority of it's coming from, individual donors and like from corporate partners. And that's what's making up a significant chunk of our funding. And so, yeah, how can people help? Hey, if people like to cook, going back to cooking, putting on the apron, if you will, and coming on site to cook a meal, to provide dinner to our families. We really rely on the community. We provide over 50,000 meals a year. And so that's really just an awesome way to get involved. If people are looking for a really simple one-off, to just come, like I said, cook, experience the house, not the food you want to cook and cook. Of course, there's other different programs, whether it's a monthly donor program or other ways to get involved. Really, we say $19 a month helps us support the work we do. And so, it's just every little bit helps because the families that we are supporting, we house them for free for as long as they need. And sometimes that might be stay is 20 nights. So that might be about 3 weeks. Sometimes it's months, but we save families about $1,000 a week. And so when you think about that, hey, if you'd have to pay, for a lot of people, especially based on the hospital population that they serve, we have about 48% of our families qualify for Medicaid. So about half of those families, that's a significant thing to navigate through. Being in a hospital, unexpected, how we're going to do this, what hotel we're going to stay at, how far we're going to be, how we're going to get there, all those different things. And so again, with the community's help, we're like, you know what, we've got you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to be here alongside of you for as long as needed.
That just moves me because as a mom of two,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a parent, but you could probably relate more to this, right? Because that's you want to be able to do everything you can to support your child. And so this is really tough because there's not a whole lot you can do. You have to really rely on others to help navigate through a situation, but we can, again, take that burden off so that way you can focus on what matters most, which really is, again, being by your child's side and being there. And we're the closest living facility to the hospital, right? We are on the hospital campuses. We're inside the hospital, right? So, I mean, for families, like our new house, less than 100 steps away to get from the NICU to our front door.
Wow.
So that's the whole idea, is that we're able to be there, provide that access to care, because we want to make sure that families are able to get the best care they can for their child.
And I think most people don't know. I didn't know until our conversation, which I'm so glad you brought up that like you can do simple things like cook. I wouldn't have expected
Sure.
that.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes people are like, I don't know how to help, but there are very approachable ways to do that.
absolutely. Yeah, 100%. There's, like I said, we can go on, on the website, rmhctampabay.org. There's a get involved section. You just click meals, and then you can sign up to cook. Like I said, bring the food. There's different kind of community fundraisers that you could do. I mean, it's all about how you want to get involved, but it really takes a community to help us support this work that we do and really support the families that are with us. Again, you never know when you'll need it, but we're just glad to be a resource for so many families that, again, like you said, during a really challenging time, we open our doors and they can be with us for, like I said, as long as they need.
Do you guys have any upcoming events or anything that people could be a part of or
Yeah, for sure. We have a golf event that's coming up in November, which is cool. And then, we do have some different things going on. We have a little event too that's taking place, kind of informational at Green Bench. Let me look at the exact date real quick, that way I don't mess that up. The brewery that's in St. Petersburg.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of just a cool, like, kind of, get to learn a little more about Ronald McDonald House. Again, really, it just takes all of us doing what we can to make the community that we live in living better, right? And a lot of the families too. Sometimes people think, well, these families are coming from far away, out of state, out of country, and yeah, is some of that, but primarily, a majority of our families are families that are in the greater Tampa Bay area that they delivered prematurely at a hospital, let's say Countryside Meese or at Sarasota Memorial, and they need to get transferred to a different hospital. And so that's where our houses really come into play. But we're not, the other last piece I'll share too is we're not just housing, we really are various support services. So everything from, a bagged meal of food when you're at let's say at a hospital and you've just been there all day, to we have emotional kind of bags, we call them hope bundles. We provide those as well. So really, whether you're at Sarasota Memorial or, let's say, Countryside Meese, like, we don't have a physical house there, but we have those programs there. And that might be your first experience for Ronald McDonald House. Because we know that we can't house every single family, but how can we support families that maybe aren't staying with us, but are still part of the mission that we should care for in some way and help them just be familiar with us. So that way, if they do get transferred, then they realize, okay, I could stay here. I have a place to stay instead of commuting, that 45 minutes or hour, whatever it is.
that my friend told me was, yeah, like you guys were there while they were experiencing this, it was a premature birth and it was very tough.
Yeah.
But the overall kindness too that you guys
No,
were,
thank you.
yes, it was meals, yes, it was a place, yes, they were close, but there she was like there you guys really cared and were there and it was like, like almost like counseling and it
Sure.
just was somebody being there when
Yeah.
sometimes I think like friends or family might not know what to say in certain situations.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah, you're
amazing.
absolutely right. Right. It's a listening ear. You're right. And I think the other piece too that we haven't really talked about is really the community aspect of it. These families really become a tight-knit community because they're more familiar of what each one's going through. And think about it like a work day. I mean, they basically get up in our houses, they'll maybe see each other at breakfast. If it's the same situation their families are going through, they're going to see each other in the same medical wing all day. And let's say they're next door neighbors, right? So they might talk a little bit then they'll come back to our house for dinner. They'll see each other at dinner, and they'll really support each other. And so we really always seen that. It's tough for us to actually like put a measure behind that, right? But the fact is that those families are really each other's strength, especially in the good days, absolutely, but in the really challenging ones. They really lean on each other. And I think that's what makes the Ronald McDonald so special too. We're really the only organization that does what we do that has these facilities right there by the hospital. And so it really is a really special mission and a really special opportunity to make an impact for sure.
Wow. I want to say too, I think going back to like your upcoming event in September, I think it's really cool to have it at like a local brewery or something because like you were saying earlier, people don't maybe know everything about the Ronald McDonald House until they need it. But
Yeah.
why not, continue to introduce it to people that could help and
Yeah.
be exposed to it, but and tell others about it. And do you find that it's kind of like word of mouth, or is it the hospital that refers? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. So, what I would say is kind of two main paths. To your point, what we'll do is that really the hospital social worker actually has to kind of validate and state, yes, this person does need the Ronald McDonald's, should qualify for the Ronald McDonald House. So we do work with the social work team mainly to make sure we're kind of getting people that they think really need a space. And partially that's some of that's just because again, we'd love to house everyone, but what can we do? What makes the most sense? And then secondly, to that point, we do have families that will come to us directly, and that's because of a specialty. We have some treatments in the area where we have an amazing doctors, but that means that this child's going to go through multiple procedures and they're going to need to be somewhere for like 6 months. And so when families start hearing this, right, hey, you have this really rare condition, your mind starts spinning, I'm sure, as a parent. And the first thing all of us do is like we start Googling, right? How am I going to do this? And then that's, of course, when there's these Facebook groups of all these different parents that are kind of navigating through the same thing. And that's when they find, hey, there's actually a doctor that's in my area or out of state that I need to go to. And it sounds like I could stay at the Ronald McDonald House. Sometimes we'll get phone calls that say, hey, I've got this, diagnosis of my child. I'm planning to be on site to visit the hospital. Can I see your space? And then again, it kind of is a backward process where we'll say, hey, that's great. And then once they connect with a social worker, we'll say, hey, so-and-so families have requested to stay. Can you just kind of verify some things? And then we'll work to get them in the house. So
Wow.
that's kind of how that works. But yeah, I think the thing that people don't fully know, I think people know the name Ronald McDonald House. They don't really know we do. And so to your point, that's really the goal is really, unless you've had a personal experience or a friend has had a personal experience to tell you a little bit about it, we know that it's one of those things that people aren't as familiar with. And so for us, it's just an opportunity to share more about the impact we make and how important it is for us to be able to provide these services for families.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Joe, because that helps people's just their life when they absolutely need it the most. And I also appreciate that you do things like the cold plunge
Sure,
and your
yeah.
love of cooking because we need people like you to do what you do and to be healthy and happy to do that is just amazing because if without people like you, then, causes like the Ronald McDonald House won't have the appropriate ability to help others. So I think what you're doing is amazing. It's God's work. And
No, thank you. It's definitely challenging, right? It's challenging to raise the funds. You get a lot of no's at times, but at the end of the day, what I'm most reminded of is just the impact that we have on families. And yeah, somewhere I guess the one piece I haven't shared, personal piece really is that yeah, I've had friends who've also been impacted by Ronald McDonald House, and that's really and family members too, and that is really what has kind of stuck with me, and that's what I really tell my team is, hey, like focus on that family that you have a relationship with, and no matter what during some challenging times as we're trying to do this work because it is difficult, be reminded of that because that's who you're doing it for. You're helping that family and families similar to that. And so you're right, it's really meaningful and grateful for the opportunity to do it. And been leading the team for 7 years, just a huge honor. So we got great leadership. Lisa, our CEO, is amazing. We got an amazing board, just an amazing team that really helps us do this work day in, day out.
wow. Well, I thank you so much for being such a great guest on our
Yeah,
podcast.
sure.
And
Thank you.
I definitely want to keep in touch and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.